So starting from left to right, Alicia Kasparaitis is from Corpus Christi, Texas, and is a current student at Johnson & Wales University. She's pursuing her degree in sports entertainment and event management. One day she hopes to work in events, preferably at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. Next we have Gabrielle Pulley. She is from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and is a graduate of Johnson & Wales University. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Sports Entertainment and Event Management, and is currently pursuing her MBA. She has broken into the entertainment industry by working with Sony, and hopes to continue working in that industry. Next we have Ray Nunes. He is from Buttsville, New Jersey, and is the current Student Government Association President of Johnson & Wales University. She was elected as a first-year student. Ray is pursuing his degree in graphic design and digital media with a focus on print management and communications. He plans to use his expertise in design and leadership to pursue a career in higher education. And finally, we have Emily Meagard. She is from Lincoln, Rhode Island, and is a current student at Johnson & Wales University. She is pursuing her degree in sports entertainment and event management, and one day she hopes to open her own events company or work at Gillette Stadium. And if you're all ready, I would like to now open the questions to the media.
How did you personally get involved in the project?
So I can just take that. You guys can hear me? Yeah. Okay. So originally, this was just an idea through students. You kind of hear the buzzing, and then Professor Covino came to all of us, besides Ray, because he's SJA president, and she offered us the opportunity to work in a DEE, which is a directed experiential. There you go. I'm using the DWE. And so we had the opportunity to work with Professor Covino and spend 11 weeks with her Friday mornings. It was glorious, but we got to work with SGA, all the student activities, and even present to a bunch of deans. So it really became a full whirlwind project.
How many other students are working on the project?
I'll take that one. Including myself, there were 9 of us working on the project, and then Professor Covino oversaw it. We all had different majors, so some of us were SEE, some were grad students like Gabriella, and some were like food and beverage, so it was a great mix of people.
How were students chosen for the project?
Basically, mostly the students were chosen just in between classes. I don't think they were specifically pinpointed. Anyone really could kind of join in. Like she said, the different majors kind of were involved, so that was such a great opportunity because this is such a project where a bunch of people really want to see student center happen, and you really shouldn't have to be pinpointed or chosen. It's kind of like if it's drawn to you, it's more of a place where anyone can be involved. But basically, mostly people were chosen if they had classes with Covino. So.
What are some of the responsibilities you have being in a directed experiential education class?
So just like any other class, a DEE is 11 weeks long, and in some cases it's more intense than a class because you're meeting every morning or every evening whenever the professor denotes is your time to meet, and it's with a certain amount of students. Most of the time it's not any more than 10 or 11, and you're working on one given project. So like Professor Leary had his SEAM conference, we had a DE for just creating a needs assessment. A lot of it was research driven, so we weren't going out, we weren't meeting with people to bring them in, to speak with them. We were the ones presenting and gathering that data. So it was more intense than it was just taking a test or sitting in class because we had to do all the work.
Do you think that a directed experimental education class should be a required type of course to take? Why or why not?
I think it should be a required course to take. You getting a lot of real world experience through it. Like this project was definitely a lot of research based, but it teaches you that when you're planning an event or you're planning anything, it takes a lot more research, and it just kind of applies what you're planning on doing in the future into your education. And I just think that it's a really good experience to apply to your education for everyone. In our major, especially.
How many SGA senators/members were involved?
Great question. So initially there were about 5 senators who were a part of the initial proposal team, as well as the association president of last year's student government. Those were the people who initially started the conversation for a DEE class.
What other departments and organizations are involved from the university?
So essentially everybody's a stakeholder for this student center project, but the departments that are existing right now, student involvement and leadership, they were a big, they sponsored this class through the help of student government, but ultimately everybody really is kind of a stakeholder in this.
Could students get involved now? Explain more.
Yeah, so I could definitely tackle this one. Absolutely. This is something that the DE class tackled the question of the need. Do students want it? Is it something that we need at the university? But students could get involved by just advocating and amplifying that we really do need something like a student center here at the university.
When did the talk of developing a student center start?
I'll take this one too. So the talk of a student center is definitely not new. This is something that we're sure has come up in the past from other students, and I'm sure they've done similar needs assessments, but this particular conversation came about last spring. The executive board and a few senators, like I mentioned, proposed a DE class, and then Professor Gavino's class ultimately was created from a piece of legislation that was passed through student government.
Who came to you with the idea of developing a student center specifically?
So Ray kind of covered some of that. It wasn't the DE group essentially. I mean, we were driven about the project, but it was SGA and the Student Involvement and Leadership Office. They're the ones that came to us and said that this is what we're looking for. We want to know if this is something that our campus and our students want and need. So that's how we were brought to that, and then so on and so forth.
What were some of the questions that were a part of the survey?
So I can read you. We actually have the whole presentation written now, and something unique about what our research gathered is that we not only did surveys, we also did focus groups. So our surveys had everything from what year are you to what do you use most on campus, do you live on campus, how long is your commute, and then our focus groups had everything from what is it that you feel like you're missing on campus. So when we had focus groups down on Harborside, they said that the Harborside students are missing a place where they can gather and where they can really relax, let alone like they don't feel that the Wildcat Center is good enough for them. So those are the types of things that we were gathering from our survey.
How long did it take to create the survey?
Well, the survey probably took about, it was more or less like looking at research from other research-based styles. So I would say it probably took about two or three class periods to kind of get it down on what we wanted on the piece of paper, because we're doing this on SurveyMonkey, so it's about 10 questions you can ask, and you really got to figure out what do you want to ask, and what's important, and what's the genre. So you have to look at demographics and all that stuff. So it took about maybe 2 or 3 classes to kind of settle down on one point and putting it down on SurveyMonkey, but it didn't take too long. It was just more or less like what we wanted to ask and what we needed for the project.
How long was the survey available for? And in other words, when did it start and end?
So I believe that we finished developing all of the questions and putting everything together about week 5, and we opened it that Friday is when we started sending out surveys. So it was open from, I think, week 5 to week 9, and we closed it at week 9 so we could put together all of our findings and put together a presentation. So I guess, in short, it was like 4 weeks.
How many students took the survey?
That's actually an exact number of 466 students took the survey.
Looking back at the survey now, is there anything you would change about it?
I wouldn't necessarily, there would be anything on the survey part that we would change. Probably a little bit more in-depth questions, because we had general responses. So if we were to do it again, maybe more? I wouldn't really necessarily know, because the surveys are basically about demographics and looking more into just kind of like very simple, where focus groups are more in-depth. So I think we have a good basis if we were to go in more depth, I guess. Just a little bit more tweaking on some of the questions.
Can I add on to that? I would also tweak how we disseminated the survey. We couldn't get it out to as many people as we would have. Well, we met the quota, but we couldn't get it out to the variety of people that we wanted and have them take it. So I would probably disseminate it in a different way so we had more variety of classes and majors taking it.
As well, at our presentation, we had future recommendations as our last slide, and one of them is that we really wanted to target, if we were to do this again, the faculty, because at the end of the day, even though it's just about students, we also have to see how faculty can take advantage of a space like a student center. So that was one of our big recommendations we had going forth.
Are students truly having a say in what the building will be used for?
Absolutely. That was what our survey was all about. We asked students questions from, do you want to have a bowling alley, a fish tank, ping pong tables, if you name it, it's probably on there, because it's what students want. We had the opportunity of going on a field trip to URI and seeing what their student center is, and it's a relatively old building, but it's used to its maximum. So they have a ballroom, and that ballroom is used from class events to Greek and sorority life, or fraternity and sorority life. So we wanted a student center to have students' input to see what they need for everything from the clubs and organizations, Greek life, classrooms, anything.
One of the biggest points that we made in our research was that we wanted the student center to be specifically for students. There won't be any academic, any administrative services inside the student center because it's supposed to be specifically targeted to students, because we learned through our surveys and focus groups that students feel like there isn't a place for them to just be them and to just kind of hang out. You have the library, you have the Wildcat Center, but there isn't enough space for just students to recreate.
And just so you guys know, the question 10 in our survey, we asked students to list their top suggested amenities for Student Center, and it was late night food services, 24-hour study lounge, a lounge or hangout area, movie theater, coffee house, and then it goes on to printing and copying room and bank, a bowling alley, acoustic stage, arcade and game room, charging stations. So we've really tried to hit everybody's needs within the survey.
Late night food would be really good though. Other than developing a student center, what other options are the school considering?
Yeah, so we're really looking into immediate action, right? We're not going to just say, oh, that's great information, let's worry about it later. We're really trying to tackle that now. So one of the big things that came up with the amenities is study areas and hangout spots, right? That's a big thing here. If you're a part of a club or organization, you know how difficult it is to book space for your club or org if it's more than 10 people, right? It's incredibly difficult. So what the university is trying to do right now is to allocate spaces that we're already using, but trying to use them for different purposes. So if you're familiar with Snowden Dining Hall, there's the Clock Tower Lounge attached to that. They're trying to drive more traffic in there. That's a bookable space for your club or organization. You could have meetings there. You could bring your class in there for whatever kind of project you're working on. The bottom part of the library is also going to be changing around a bit. If you notice the upstairs of the Down City Library, they added a couple more seating areas. So tackling the problem of there is no area to study with your classroom and whatnot. So there are already some existing plans to capitalize on the existing space that we have. Great question.
Where on the Down City or Harborside campus will the student center potentially go?
Good. So we could all kind of answer this one.
Can I be the first one to say, I know that the idea of karma, everyone heard that karma was purchased, and the first thing that people assumed is that student center is going there just because we were working on this research project during that time. Unfortunately, we don't know. We don't know what karma was purchased for specifically. It could be for a student center, but the likelihood of it being Down City is a lot higher than it would be on Harborside, just because there would be more traffic Down City.
Yeah, so something that we want to add to that. A lot of people are questioning why Down City versus Harborside, right? We have CBCSI Down City, why don't we add something to Harborside? There's a big amenity that's on Harborside that we don't have here, and that's the athletic complex. So there is a significant drive of Down City students going to Harborside. The real problem is Harborside students coming Down City. If you're a culinary major or really a Harborside major down there, you don't really have a purpose to come Down City unless it's for one of your academic classes, right? So having a student center Down City will really significantly drive that traffic over here, which is something that we definitely need.
What other steps must be taken to develop a student center?
Yeah, so we've taken the steps that we could. We've done this needs